Please join me in the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. And now let's bow our heads in order of prayer. Eternal Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the privilege of living in the United States of America with its tradition of freedom and liberty. We thank you for those who have gone before us to protect and preserve the freedoms that we enjoy. We ask that you will help us and strengthen us as we fulfill our responsibilities to that freedom, and we ask that you will strengthen us and help us to pass this legacy on to the next generation. We thank you for the food and the friends that you have provided for us on this special evening, and we ask that you would bless our activities and use them to your glory. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Okay, I guess I'm on now. I want to thank you all for being here. You should know that we almost canceled the banquet this year because Governor Walz, bless his soul, gave rules. And the rules left us with no venue accepting more than 10 people at a time. And that was, we couldn't put this together then. So what we did was we looked around, and Chris found this place. And thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
So, nice work. We made it work. Thanks to Burger Mose and Chris. We may be limited to 40 people, but at least we can publicly present our awards to our honorees. We think that's important. These days, it takes a special courage to get an award from LEA, with political correctness rampant. Our 4 honorees tonight are repeat offenders. Speaking of people with special courage, one of the founders of LEA, Viola Marin, passed away just a few short weeks ago. She got and survived COVID, saw her 100th birthday party. I didn't know Viola well. Some of you did. She was a high-energy, highly principled, enthusiastic citizen, and she made things happen. She was a leader. She had good friends all over the state. We'll miss her. I'd like to offer just a moment of silence in her memory. Viola showed us how things are done in America. We fight it out in open debate. We explore ideas and challenge each other. There's no central authority to tell us what to think. There's only the marketplace of ideas. We gather together to support each other and advance our common agendas. We fight for what we believe, knowing no one has a monopoly on the truth. Let me quote Edmund Burke. To love the little platoon we belong to in society is the first principle, the germ, as it were, of public affections. It is the first link in the series by which we proceed toward a love of our country and of mankind. Minnesota Voters Alliance and LEA are 2 of these little platoons described by Burke. MVA has taken on election integrity. More on that later. LEA has a different task. We teach the public about the principles behind our state constitution and the performance of our legislators according to their constitutional oaths and our credo. Fighting apathy and corruption in this environment requires courage. I thank Andy Sillick for his work. He's working for us, protecting the integrity of our elections, fundamental to our politics. It's not often I say this, but the left is exactly right about one thing. Public confidence in our elections is absolutely essential. That's why digging into allegations of fraud is vital. We don't need Soviet propaganda that everything is fine. We need transparency and effective, diligent oversight. MVA is one of those organizations in Minnesota making a difference. I shudder to think where we would be if not for their efforts. LEA is another vital organization. We've been around since 1972, and we study the actions of the legislature and generate a report every year. We're always looking for more opportunities to publicize our work and report to citizens about their legislature. When we decided to move forward with this event with a limit of 40, we didn't want the awkwardness of turning people away, so we only invited paid-up members and a few recent donors, a total of about 100. In a week, we were sold out. I wish we could have accommodated everyone who wanted to attend. You, our members, are a loyal and steadfast group. You are political leaders, like it or not. Thank you for your activism and support. You are the best. Thank you. Enjoy the program. I think it's time to present the awards to our honorees. I think that's next in the program, is it not? First one is Cal Barr, and presenting that is Ben.
You want him to come up?
Yes.
Sure. Come on down.
That's a legislative?
Nobody said I couldn't have fun, right? That's right. That's right. You know, they have tried to take the fun out of everything. Representative Cal Barr, elected in 2016. He's in his third term, scored 94%. Protecting our freedoms is never far from his mind. Cal reminds people we are a republic, not a democracy. And of course, that's the foundation for protecting our freedoms. He's not a power to the state politician. Remember the old days when people chanted power to the people? It seems like old days now, doesn't it? Cal fights against the power grabs, or thankfully does. In getting ready to make this award, I took a look at Cal's Facebook page, and it's pretty impressive. He connects his, not for pictures. Oh. No, but there's some nice videos. He connects his votes, his bills, and his positions to foundational principles. That's not the way we usually debate things anymore. We debate things about, gee, that's a really bad idea, how about we just do half of it?
That's pretty normal, yeah.
So he's quite an educator about our foundational principles. In perusing the Facebook site, I found him making an argument one time, and here's a quote. Government is one thing only. It is raw power. The government can't give you anything that it didn't take from someone else first. It can't give you a gift of freedom to assemble, to associate, to worship. It can only restrict those activities. It's a great quote. Cal's not the first to say it, and I pray he's not the last. We thank you, and we are incredibly pleased to give you this award.
Thank you, sir.
Speech.
Speech. Isn't raw power enough?
Where's your substitute gun?
Where to begin? Thank you for starters. Thank you to everybody here. Thank you to the organization, to Lee, to John, and Minnesota Voters Alliance, and everybody else who is actively involved in all of these activities, because it's people like you. When we know you have our back at the Capitol, it makes it so much easier to stand up and make these arguments in front of the socialists that are trying to take your freedoms away from you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now, if we could just figure out another 4 people or 5 people on the other side of the aisle that actually believed in freedom, that would take the power away from the government and actually have 3 branches of government again, it would be so refreshing. I mean, we do have this republic thing. As an example, so we just mentioned about republic democracy. We had a resolution on the floor that was condemning the violence in Washington, D.C. on the 6th of December. And 3 different places in there, they referred to our government as a democracy, our democracy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I had an amendment in Rules Committee that would have changed that to our republic, because he started out as constitutional democracy, which is way off base. And he changed it to just a democracy instead of a constitutional democracy. And then we argued about that on the floor. And then there was a verbal debate to change those 3 instances from democracy to republic. Straight party line vote, 64-70. Every damn one of them thinks we're a democracy.
They've been taught it in education.
Still, you could, like, Article 4, Section 4 of the Federal Compact guarantees every state in the Union a Republican form of government. Here it is, black and white. We are a republic. No, we're a democracy. No. Wait, we don't care about that old crusty document way back there 200 plus years ago. It means nothing today. We're going to use the court system to change it one piece at a time until you have no freedom left. Which is, I was just mentioning to Sue about, think about this when you go home tonight. What freedom do you actually have left? Think which one you have left, and when you figure it out, let me know, because so far the only one I've found is the freedom to die. You can sometimes, if you kill yourself, you can pick your place to die. And other than that, the government has their hand in everything you do. Right down the water that he just bathing in that pitcher right there is regulated by the government. The shoes that our waiter is wearing are regulated by the government. The air you breathe is regulated by the government. Everything we do has government involvement in it. So think about the things that we have left that are free, and how much it means to you and what you're willing to do to get it back, because it's not coming back for free. This is going to be a tough road to hoe, and I value every one of you in this room for knowing that you have my back. Draz, Jeremy, Eric, you have our backs at the Capitol, and I know that, and it means the world to all of us that you do. Thank you.
Next in line is Mr. Draskowski. I'm going to drag you up here. You got to say a few words too.
Hey, my rep. I've known Steve for quite a while now. We were in the early days of the Tea Party, going around and seeing each other at meetings. He became a representative in 2007, and this will be his 9th award.
Oh, wow.
He scored 97%. He's our highest winner this year.
Way to go, Drag.
Steve's actions also are for the benefit of the citizens, not the elites and the special interests. He's out there listening to what people need, and he's really trying to do his job as a representative of the people, and supports constitutional principles. This year he has introduced several bills, and they relate to firearms, hunting, voting, reforming our voting, voter ID, things that we're all concerned about here. Steve, on behalf of the LEA, I'm pleased to recognize your work, and thank you for your service.
Hey, Steve. Thank you, Gordon, and thank you, everybody, Don and others. I'd like to thank my constituent, Don Evanson, for coming up here from Minnesota City, down near Winona. So that's a little bit of a trip from the banana belt of Minnesota, we like to call it, where it's we get 31 inches of rain a year down there. So and it's warm, relatively speaking. So our freedom is so important. I thank Representative Barr for his leadership in the legislature and in our caucus to remind us so much of the Constitution and the reality of where we came from and where our freedoms came from. They came from God, and our Constitution was written to protect those freedoms. It is our job as legislators to do the same thing, to protect those freedoms rather than continuing to chip away at them. We have been fighting during session. We've been fighting during the interim. As a matter of fact, we've been in almost perpetual session for the last year, given that we've had 8 or 9 not so special sessions. trying to undo the governor's unconstitutional executive orders. We've been involved in working to bring forward lawsuits to challenge the governor's unconstitutional orders. The most recent one was in the Court of Appeals here and was heard about 2 weeks ago, and will likely be appealed from there to the Minnesota Supreme Court, challenging again the constitutionality of the governor's executive orders, the peacetime emergency, and the special powers that I'll tell you. One of the things that endangers us here in Minnesota is that legislatures, past legislatures, and even current ones in Minnesota have been very, very lazy.
Yes.
And so what they have done at times is out of sheer utility at the time, decided to delegate their powers to the executive. And that's what happened here. So Chapter 12 of statutes dealing with a peacetime emergency says, Governor, you can take up this peacetime emergency, and that allows him then to write all these executive orders. And it says, legislature, this is what the law says, legislature, if you don't like what he's doing, you can veto the governor. So the governor is writing the law, and the legislature is either vetoing it or not.
Good grief.
Table cart has become upset. Up is down, down is up. And we have an unconstitutional law that was written because of a lazy legislature. And we've seen that throughout law. And that's why the executive branch in this state is so strong. We got to recapture some of those powers and get our legislature to be attentive again, to read bills and do the things that all the honorees, thank you, that all the honorees here tonight do diligently. And we also fight in the off season. After the election, we do. And after the election, we all joined Ken Paxton's letter from the state of Texas when we put forward a letter and said, Ken, if you're going to sue those 4 states for usurping the rights of not only their state constitution, but the federal constitution, Article 1, Section 4, and Article 2, Section 1, that we hear about, where the legislatures are supposed to set the election law, but the governors and the Secretary of States have taken that away. So we wrote a letter and said, Ken, add Minnesota a letter and sue us too, because they did it here. And that's what we did. Of course, it only lasted a few days, and they threw it out because of lack of standing. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court didn't take that. But then the first day of session, get this, the liberals came forward and they wrote a statement of protest and dissent in the journal, protesting and dissenting our letter to all, and outlined all of us members that have written that letter, saying we were somehow not patriotic because we challenged what was happening here in the state of Minnesota. So they will do that. They did that, and they did it on January 6th when we spoke at a rally, supporting then our president and supporting freedom here in this state and country. And they impugned our intent and what we had to say and tried to turn us into the people who were storming the Capitol in Washington, D.C. and said, well, these people should be under investigation, and threw a cloud of uncertainty over us. So we stomped through that, and we stood tall, and will continue to stand tall for what is right here, and that is freedom, that is the rule of law, and that is our Constitution. Thank you.
Maybe.
Next in line is Mr. Lucero.
Of course, here's Mike Lindell.
This man is an excellent example of what is possible when you strive to do the right thing and abide by the Constitution. Even if it means that you're not currying favor with the special interests and the triumvirate.
Good.
When Eric learned that he was going to receive an award from LEA, he said this: "I'm continuing my commitment, fighting for self-evident truths, unalienable rights, and constitutionally limited governments, so the next generation can partake of the same blessings we've enjoyed as part of this great American experiment."
Oh, man.
I also want to add that Eric has substantially raised the bar for the dress code. For the dress code at the state capitol. If I had to think of 2 words to describe the sport coats that Eric wears, bland and subdued would not be those 2 words.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric Lucero, for all that you do to keep the faith and fight for the cause. Thank you.
I am so humbled to be here with such a great group, and it is truly an honor to receive the award yet again. But it is just that. It is not hard when you're doing the right thing, right? So how many are excited in great anticipation of celebrating the 1-year anniversary of the 14-day Flatten the Curve? Yeah, a few days from now, we can celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the 14-day Flatten the Curve. And it is so incredibly abusive. And we know that the goalposts continue to be changed, that there is no objective benchmarks that the governor is after. Why? Because he is trying to move and grab power. Assume power that he does not have. And unfortunately, the leadership in this state, whether it be the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, the State Auditor, our 2 U.S. Senators, the Minnesota House Majority, they are complicit in allowing him to keep his power and abuse it.
Yes.
And just today we saw a headline. Target, I think it was $15 billion record profit, more, or I should say equal to the previous 11 years combined. And then this morning when sitting in the Capital Investment Committee, they have the audacity, the Democrat commissioners for Governor Walz were in committee testifying, they have the audacity to say we need to borrow money and redistribute it to help small business owners. Do you know what small business owners need?
Open up.
Is to be allowed to return to work. Exactly. The party of big business, Target, Walmart, and all the rest of them, are making record profits because of the choices and abuse of power of Governor Walz and the Democrat Party. And it is coming at the expense of our small business owners and those who want to work hard. Because they're told to shut down. Right? It is so incredibly frustrating and hypocritical. So, another thing, I don't know, are you watching the Zoom committee meetings, and how many are seeing these? Just a few. Well, it's good that you're not, because you'd want to throw up, or if you have your vomit bucket right there. Just the conversation the 4 of us were having on the way over. It doesn't matter what committee you're in. I'm in 3. I'm in the Commerce Committee, the Public Safety Committee, and the Capital Investment Committee. But I have heard from my colleagues on all the other committees. It doesn't matter if you're on the Transportation Committee, the Agriculture Committee, the Housing Committee, the Health and Human Services Committee, the Education Committee. It doesn't matter. Every single one of them is dominated with conversations of equity versus equality.
Yes.
And in fact, they're not even using the word equality. They're using the word equity. Do you know what the difference is between equity and equality? And they're using equity on purpose. Because equity has to do with using government force to engineer an equal outcome. That's what we call communism.
Right on.
Equality is affording every individual equal opportunity to pursue their self-determined definition of happiness, right? And we will not reach the same ends. Because every one of us has different God-given talents. Every one of us has different personality types. Every one of us makes choices in life to go to school, to not go to school. Every one of us has a different risk tolerance, how much we want to invest or sacrifice to go out and start a business, right? And thereby, the very definition, we will have different outcomes. That's why we are not a communist or socialist country. But yet the Democrats are trying to engineer and force that. And so when this comes up in committee, I'm calling it out and trying to do the best I can to rope them back in. And just as Representative Barr said, we are a constitutional republic, and I am here fighting for constitutional values to allow people to self-determine the outcomes of their life rather than government. So I am, again, so appreciative of groups like this. It's not that hard to get awards when you do the right thing, although I'm always happy to receive them. But you are the ones that are allowing this to happen. It is the hard work and the sacrifice and the continued effort of people in this room and those that agree with us, unfortunately couldn't be here, that allow for us and help us to continue to fight for your voices and values, again, for the next generation. So thank you so much.
Unfortunately, Representative Munson was last alphabetically. He must hate that.
Middle of the alphabet.
I didn't prepare a speech, sorry. But Jeremy is the best legislator ever. I wish he was in my district. Because I couldn't win in my district, but maybe he could. But it is my extreme honor to give you this award on behalf of LEA.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, going last, I have to cross off all the stuff I was going to talk about that they were going to talk about, so I'm limited in what I can talk about. Again, thank you so much, everybody that participates in LEA. This is the highlight of my session. I really dislike going to these a lot of these other functions, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota, handouts that has their big steak dinner, and all these things that the big events of the season. It's all the lobbyists and special interest groups and people that put me in conflict with my own constituents. But my district likes less government. My district is rural. We want to just be left alone. And as a big supporter of liberty, that speaks to my district, and that's what you guys are fighting for. Everything you guys appreciate and support and advocate for, I love. And so it is absolutely my honor to get this award. And as a group of limited government, you guys have the smallest award, which is cool. Yeah, so there's room for more. As somebody who didn't want to be in government, it's difficult to manage this, and we all have day jobs, and we all try to keep it going, and we have families, and that's the big struggle. When you want to read the legislation and not just vote like your caucus leader tells you to, it takes a lot more effort. And we put in a lot of time reading the bills and caucusing everything so that we can thoroughly vet legislation. And lobbyists have finally stopped calling us to tell us how they, I mean, a lot of lobbyists actually appreciate us being so vocal because they know how we're going to vote. They don't have to call us. But for the people that, set up meetings with us, they get an earful. And we're not afraid to tell them that. And so they appreciate our honesty too. I serve on the Health and Human Services, or the Health Finance Committee, and the Energy Committee, which is now called the Climate Change Committee. And I'm also on the Redistricting Committee, and that has not met yet. But I thought it was really going to be an interesting committee. I love maps and love how this is going to work, and I'm pretty analytical, so I'm excited to serve on that. On the Energy Committee, and as Eric said, everything's about race. Everything's about social justice, and they're not afraid to put that into statute. Everything needs to be considered, and so I have found the best way to attack the liberal mentality is to use their own words against them. Okay? I can't talk to a liberal about the economics of wind turbines or solar not being, economically viable. It falls on deaf ears. They don't understand economics, and they don't understand numbers, except maybe when it comes to votes. And they just fudge everything. So I use emotion to back at them. And my whole family are big liberals, so I've got a lot of practice growing up. But I brought forward 8 amendments in the Energy Committee when they brought forward this big stinker of a bill to say we're banning carbon by 2040. And I brought amendments forward saying, okay, well, they want to do electric cars. Well, 65% of the electric vehicle's battery is nickel. And what mineral do we have an abundance of in Minnesota that they oppose mining? Nickel. And the second most important ingredient in lithium-ion batteries for electric cars is cobalt. And it's mined almost exclusively in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And they use 40,000 child slave laborers. So we are using Zoom now in committee. And so when I had my Zoom meeting, I created a graphic, so the virtual background, of a bunch of children in slavery. And this was a bill for electric school buses they were mandating, and school buses. And I put a title saying slavery to school buses. And it was a black woman bringing the bill forward, and I made her vote no on an amendment that said that we were going to be banning, we're not going to be using tax dollars for child slave labor. Use the emotion back at them. Make them vote against slavery. For crying out loud. Make them vote against what they should be fighting for. Turn their argument against them. And that works well. And it puts them in a position where now the bill's coming to the Energy Committee, they don't even have numbers because they don't want to formally introduce them until it gets through the Energy Committee so that they don't have to take Munson's amendments anymore. I had 8 amendments on one bill, I had 4 on another, and so now the bills are coming to the committee as an informational only, but they're laying them over for inclusion in the omnibus bill so we don't even get to vote on it until they come back to the committee. That's how they're getting around this. But we need to keep on the offensive and using their arguments against them because that's what's most effective, I think, in pushing against this narrative. We need to win this election next year. We need to win the governor's race, and it takes everybody's help. We're going to need everything. And for our caucus, we have so many projects that we need help with. We're going to ask for interns, but if you have time to help us out researching an issue, putting together information so that we can blow the doors off of Governor Walz using an erectile dysfunction company called Vault Capital. Have you heard of it? Or Vault Health, Vault Health.
Oh my gosh.
As in pole vaulting. He hired this company, and they got about $35 million to manage the vaccine rollout strategy for the state of Minnesota. And who did they put as the national director for Vault Health? Dan Feehan. The first district candidate to run against Hagedorn, who has no background in health. And also somebody from Dan's campaign, his campaign manager, is now one of the national directors by this New York-based company. Because we have health companies here like the Mayo and Alina. No, they hire some company out of New York to hire Dan Feehan and somebody that worked for the Walz administration. We need to blow the doors off this. And these votes to give this money was not by the legislature, it was by this little secret group of legislators to be like rubber stamp stuff. They're the ones that voted to buy the morgue. They're the ones that decided to give, $5 million to the hippos at the Minnesota Zoo instead of taking care of people. Instead of doing what Representative Barr wanted to do, which was to sell gun permits to take down some animals at the zoo. You could raise money that way. No. So we need to bring more transparency to the process, and we can use your help if you have time and you want to investigate put some projects together and help us. We could use your help because it's going to take everybody, all hands on deck to win the election next year. So thank you so much again for the award. I love what you're doing. We need to promote this and we need to hold legislators accountable. So thank you so much.
Hey, Jeremy.